This happened 5 years ago. I was 35, running my family farm like I always did. I inherited it from my parents. The fields stretched out in front of me and everything seemed normal. At least that's what I thought. But I've never stopped thinking about it. I remember that cool autumn evening when I first saw it. I noticed something moving in the pasture. I thought it was a neighbor's horse, but when I got closer I realized it was something else. This horse had a strange coat, a silvery gray that didn't look right. I called out to it, trying to figure out where it came from. The horse just stood there, watching me. Over the next weeks it kept showing up. Every day I looked for it. It always stood at the edge of my field, silent and still. I thought it might run off if I walked toward it, but it didn't. It just stared. At first I tried to ignore it. Maybe it would leave on its own, but it didn't. Before long, my cows started acting strange. They wouldn't go into the barn at night. I saw them huddled together, staring at that horse instead. Then the hens stopped laying eggs altogether. I was baffled. Could it be that horse causing all this? I didn't know. My heart raced every time I saw it. Something felt very wrong. One evening, I decided to work late. I wanted to see what that horse was up to, maybe figure out what was wrong with my livestock. It stood there, watching me. The wind picked up, and I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. I wanted to yell at it, to demand it leave, but I felt frozen, like it was holding me in place. Then one night, I swear I saw its eyes glowing. Just for a moment, they shone with an unnatural light. I felt a chill run through me. I turned away, hoping to forget about it, but I couldn't. I felt its gaze all night. Things were fine before, but now it felt like everything was off. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. Maybe it was the farm's legacy at stake, or just plain fear. Whatever it was, I knew I needed to confront the strange presence that had come to stay. Then one night I decided enough was enough. I stepped outside, ready to face what lurked in the dark. But when I approached the pasture, the horse was gone. The silence made my heart tighten. I glanced around, feeling something was still there, just out of reach. What had come to my farm? I couldn't say for sure. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. The crops grew heavy in the fields, but I felt a weight I couldn't shake. I thought that horse would leave, but somehow it had become part of my life. I couldn't understand why. As days turned into weeks, I kept searching for answers, and every night I felt its presence lingering just beyond my understanding. I had to know what that horse meant to me. I hoped it wouldn't haunt me forever. But I felt its shadow every day. I knew somehow this story was just beginning. The next day I decided it was time to speak with my neighbor, Ruth. She lived just down the road and often had her ear to the ground about local happenings. If anyone knew the story behind that strange horse, it would be her. When I arrived at her house, I could feel the tightness in my chest. I knocked on the door, and after a moment she answered. Her familiar smile disappeared when she saw my expression. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "Not really. I've seen something out in my pasture. I need to talk to you about it." We sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by canning jars and the scent of freshly baked bread. I told her everything. The horse, the changes in my animals, the strange feeling that accompanied its presence. As I spoke, I watched her face turn from concern to disbelief. "I've heard stories," Ruth said slowly, "about a horse that appears when something's wrong with the land. But I thought they were just old wives' tales." My heart sank as I listened. "What do you mean?" "They say it's a warning. If the horse stays too long, it means something is off balance in the area. It might be something related to the soil, the water, or even an old curse." A lump formed in my throat. Old curses, warnings. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I pushed through a wave of fear. "What can I do?" Ruth leaned closer, speaking in a hushed tone. "You need to confront it. Show it you're not afraid. But I should warn you, they don't just vanish. Whatever is connected to that horse, It might be more dangerous than you think. I left her house feeling uneasier than I had when I arrived. The mention of an old curse made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I didn't want to believe it, but deep down, that steady gaze of the horse had haunted my thoughts. How was I supposed to confront something that felt so ominous? That evening, I stepped outside again, the sun setting behind me. The fields were painted in shades of orange and purple, but I felt no warmth. I moved toward the pasture, determined to meet the horse. My heart hammered in my chest, and the air felt different, charged like before a storm. As I reached the edge of the field, I scanned the area. I could almost hear the quiet rustle of leaves, the world holding its breath. Just then, I spotted it, standing in the same spot, watching me. But something was different. This time the horse seemed larger, more imposing. Its coat shimmered, and I swear its eyes glowed even brighter. Fear gripped me, but I took a step forward. "I'm not afraid of you," I shouted, trying to sound braver than I felt. But I was met with silence. The horse remained still, unblinking. Then everything changed. A wind whipped through the field, snatching at my clothes. A low rumble echoed from deep within the earth, like distant thunder. I stumbled back, my heart racing. That's when I saw it. A shape in the shadows behind the horse, something darker and more menacing. My breath caught in my throat. I was not alone. What had I awakened? What was lurking beyond that freighted gaze? I stood frozen for a moment, trying to comprehend what I was seeing. The shape moved, shifting in and out of the shadows like it was testing the light. It was tall and thin, with angles that seemed too sharp for a living being. My gut told me to run, but my legs felt like lead. "Who are you?" I called out, trying to sound steady. My voice gave away more fear than I wanted. The horse took a step forward, and the dark shape followed suit, both seemingly connected by an invisible thread. As if in response to my question, the wind picked up again, swirling around me, carrying with it a whisper, a word I couldn't quite catch, but that sent chills racing down my spine. "Stay away," I shouted, though deep inside I was terrified I was speaking to the wind itself. I stepped back, but the ground felt strangely rooted to my feet, as if it wanted me to stay. The horse stood, still as a statue, and the shadow moved, drawing closer. I could finally make out features, a face. It looked human, or at least it once had been. Pale skin and hollow eyes locked onto mine. I gasped, stumbling back again, desperate to escape that gaze. A rush of memories flooded my mind, stories of vanished livestock and strange happenings in town. The heat of panic ignited my fight-or-flight response. I needed to do something. I remembered what Ruth said about confronting it. But how do you confront something that fills you with pure terror? Just as I steeled myself to face the dark figure, the horse let out a low neigh. To my surprise, it wasn't a harsh sound. It was a warning, a plea almost. The message was clear. There was a connection between us that I needed to understand. I took a deep breath, a wave of determination replacing some of my fear. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice wavering but louder than before. At that moment, the shadow lunged forward, and I stumbled, falling to my knees. The ground felt like it was shaking beneath me. I forced myself to look up, but all I saw was the horse again. Then the air crackled, a sudden flash of light illuminating the whole field. I shielded my eyes, and when I lowered my hand, I couldn't believe what I saw. The horse had vanished, and in its place stood a figure, human but ethereal, almost glowing. "Help me," it murmured, its voice soft but firm, echoing in the stillness around me. "Who are you?" I whispered, hardly daring to move. But just as quickly as the figure appeared, it faded away, leaving only the sound of silence hanging heavily in the air. My heart pounded in my chest. I realized I needed answers, and somehow that figure held them. I had to go back to Ruth. There were pieces here that didn't fit, and I was determined to uncover the truth. But just as I decided to leave, a feeling of dread washed over me. Whatever I was dealing with was far from over. I turned for home, my eyes scanning the field one last time. Shadows danced on the edge of my sight, but I didn't look back. In that moment, I knew I had awakened something that wouldn't be easily put to rest. The next day, I went to find Ruth. My hands were shaking as I knocked on her door. I needed her guidance now more than ever. It was like I could still see that pale face lingering in my mind, urging me to uncover whatever it was it wanted. When Ruth opened the door, her expression changed from casual greetings to concern in a heartbeat. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, inviting me in. "I might have," I replied, the weight of my experience heavy on my tongue. I quickly told her about the encounter in the field. Her eyes widened the more I spoke, and when I got to the part about the whisper, she leaned forward, almost as if trying to pull the words from me. "That's exactly what I feared," she said, her voice low and weighted. "The stories about the old horse, that's connected to them." "Stories?" I asked, feeling the tension build in my chest. "What do you mean?" Ruth hesitated. 5 years ago, there was a strange horse that appeared on your farm. No one knew where it came from. Then, not long after, livestock started disappearing, and then people... "People?" I interrupted, my heart racing again. She nodded grimly. "A few went missing. They were never found." My head spun. Was that why I felt so drawn to the shadow? The figure I saw. It told me to help it. "Do you think it's connected?" Ruth's brow furrowed. "It could be. Often spirits are tied to unresolved issues from their pasts. If a soul doesn't find peace, it may linger, seeking help." "Help how?" I asked, unease creeping in. "We need to investigate that horse," she said decisively. "It might hold the key." Just then, a sharp knock at the door made us both jump. Ruth exchanged a wary glance with me before opening it. A man stood on the porch, tall and weathered, wearing a tattered coat. "Is this the place?" he asked, his voice gravelly. "Yes," Ruth replied, cautious. "Can we help you?" "I've been hearing things," he said, glancing back as if checking for someone. "People around the town. They say something is happening on your farm again." Fear tightened my throat. "What do you mean?" "I've seen shadows in the fields, strange sounds at night," he explained, his eyes darting nervously. "I think whatever is there isn't done yet." "What do you know?" I demanded, feeling a swell of dread building in me. He looked between Ruth and me, the weight of his knowledge pressing on his shoulders. "I found something, and I think it's important." I felt my heart skip again. "What is it?" "That's when I saw it," he said, taking a step forward. "A piece of the old horse's halter. It was buried near the creek where they used to disappear. I think it's tied to what happened to them." Ruth's face paled. "We need to see that." "Now?" I asked, feeling the urgency of the moment sink in. "Yes, now," Ruth said, determination flickering in her eyes. I nodded, knowing there was no turning back. Whatever haunted those fields, I was ready to confront it. But as I stepped outside, a chill descended, and the sky twisted dark and foreboding. Something was waiting for us. I led the way down the path toward the creek, my heart pounding in sync with the thumping in my ears. Ruth followed close behind, with the stranger at her side. I didn't know his name, but he felt more like an omen than an ally. The cold air pressed against my skin, tightening like a vice as we walked. "What else do you know about the horse?" I asked, unable to silence the questions swirling in my mind. "It always appeared at dusk," the man replied, glancing around nervously as if the trees might be listening. "People said you could hear it whinnying for hours, but no one dared to go near. It was like a bad omen." Ruth nodded in agreement. "An animal that draws shadows to it. The stories fit. The creek came into view, its water murky and swirling, pretending to be a mirror while hiding its past. I could feel the tension build. Something was off. It was as if the wind itself paused, waiting for us to discover what lay beneath the surface. Over here. The man pointed to a patch of earth, slightly disturbed. That's where I found the halter. It didn't look old at all. Fear prickled my skin as I dropped to my knees. The ground seemed to exhale cold air as I brushed aside leaves and dirt. Then I saw it, the glint of metal peeking through. I clasped it gently between my fingers. The piece of halter was battered, yet unmistakably held a presence, as if it had been placed there for a reason. "What do you see?" Ruth asked, kneeling beside me, her eyes narrowing with curiosity and fear. "It's not just any halter," I said, feeling a chill race down my spine. "There's a name engraved here. Rookwood." A tense silence followed. The name echoed through my mind, igniting fragmented memories of the missing people in town. Some were familiar faces whose stories weighed against my heart. "That's it," Ruth said softly. Rookwood was the name of the horse. The townsfolk believed it was cursed. "What do we do now?" I breathed, my fingers still trembling over the metal. The stranger swallowed. "We should leave this place. It's not safe, especially as night falls." "Not yet," Ruth insisted, determination set in her features. "I need to know why this was buried here, why it connects to the disappearances." Before I could respond, the temperature dropped further, wrapping us in an icy grip. I could see my breath hang in the air, thick and heavy. The trees seemed to sway ominously. A rustle echoed, and then a low whinny slithered through the branches that surrounded us. "I think something is coming," I whispered, my pulse racing. Ruth turned to me wide-eyed. "We need to leave now." But before we could make a move, a shadow stretched across our path. The horseshoe-shaped figure emerged, unmistakable and haunting. It stood still, its eyes two glinting orbs that held centuries of pain. "Help me," the voice whispered again, but this time it wasn't just a breeze of sound. The intensity held an urgency that sent shock waves through my body. Just then, the ground trembled beneath us. "It's not over," the man said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not until you do what it wants." As the air thickened with dread, I knew our journey had just begun, and I had no idea how it was going to end. The shadow loomed closer, its equine form both terrifying and mesmerizing. I could feel Ruth's grip on my arm tighten, a silent plea for us to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. That whisper, "Help me," echoed in my mind, grappling with my fear and curiosity. "What does it want?" I breathed, my voice barely a whisper. The stranger's eyes darted between us and the figure. "That's the question," he said hoarsely. "Legends say Rookwood shows itself to those who can help its spirit find peace." The air shifted, heavy with expectation. I glanced at Ruth, her countenance shifting from fear to determination. "We can't just leave it like this," she said, and for a moment I admired her courage. Despite the dread pooling in my stomach, I felt drawn to her conviction. "Look at the halter," Ruth urged. "It has a purpose. It might connect us to what happened to the horse." I held it up, the metal glinting in the dim light. "But how do we know what to do? What does it want us to help with?" A soft rustle behind us made us jump. I turned quickly. Branches crackled as a second shadow emerged from the trees, the outline of a dark figure that seemed to meld with the night. My heart raced, pounding in my chest. "Run!" the stranger shouted, backing away from the approaching presence. But Ruth held firm, stepping forward. "No, we can't leave yet." The dark figure seemed drawn to her, its gaze lingering, almost searching. I could barely process what was happening when I noticed it, a bead of light pulsing just above the hollow of the halter, glowing ominously. "Ruth!" I called out, feeling panic rise. "The halter, it's responding!" As I held it higher, the light brightened, casting eerie shadows on the ground. The first shadow, Rookwood, began to move, stepping closer, its form shifting, almost solidifying. With each thump of its hooves against the earth, I could feel a pulse of energy, as if the place itself was alive. "I think it trusts us," Ruth said, her voice edged with awe. But trust was a fragile thing. The second shadow surged forward, its presence dark and foreboding. "You shouldn't have come here," it hissed, a chilling warning. "We aren't afraid," Ruth declared, her voice steady, but I could hear the tremor beneath. "Ruth, we need to think," I stammered, caught between the entangled urges of fear and bravery. The ground quaked again, and I dropped the halter, stumbling backwards. I saw it lay there, pulse flickering like a heartbeat against the earth. Something was coming, something far worse than just the shadows before us. Then everything went dark. The world faded, consumed by an encroaching void, and I felt a sharp pull, as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling around us. A deafening silence enveloped us. In the darkness, a whisper floated through the air again. "Help me." And my heart sank. This time, it sounded like my own voice. I blinked, trying to remember how to breathe in the suffocating dark. The silence weighed heavily on my chest, but alongside it was a growing sense of dread. Where was Ruth? Where was the stranger? My heart raced and I fought the urge to call out, afraid of what might answer. Then, without warning, a flicker of light broke through the darkness. It was dim at first, like the first twinkle of dawn, but it quickly intensified. Shapes began to emerge, blurry forms that loomed and whispered, layering over one another like fog. Fear wrapped around my throat, tightening with every heartbeat that echoed in my ears. "Ruth," I croaked, but no response came. Suddenly the glimmer coalesced into distinct forms. Rookwood appeared before me, its large eyes now shimmering with a different light, almost pleading. The dark shape, too, was clearer now, a silhouette dwarfing Rookwood, and it moved with a menacing grace. "You must choose," the dark figure hissed, its voice slithering into my mind. "Finish what was started." "Choose," I stammered. "What are you talking about?" Rookwood stepped closer, its eyes locking onto mine. I felt a sudden connection, a surge of emotion flooding through me. "Help me," it seemed to plead, but this time there was no doubt it was not just about finding peace. It was about something unfinished, something that demanded resolution. The tension in the air thickened, and I could sense the dark figure closing in. "Help is a burden," it warned, its voice dripping with malice. "You don't know what lies ahead." I swept a glance around, desperate for Ruth. My hand instinctively sought the halter, still glowing softly where I dropped it. It felt warm now, like it was alive in a way I couldn't understand. Perhaps it could bridge the gap between Rookwood and this ominous presence. "Ruth!" I shouted, feeling desperate. "We need to find her." "She is already lost," the dark figure taunted, reaching as if to pull me into its void. But I was anchored, held by the brightness of Rookwood and the hope that hung between us. "No, I won't leave her," I yelled, fighting against the pull of darkness as the shadows coiled around me. I could feel Rookwood's energy merge with mine, strengthening my resolve. I thought of Ruth, her bravery and determination. "I'll find a way," I said, looking deep into Rookwood's eyes. "We all deserve peace, don't we?" The dark figure wavered, confusion evident in its menacing form. "You're a fool," it hissed, but I could see uncertainty flicker within the shadows. That's when I saw it. A path forming behind Rookwood, illuminated by the glow of the halter. A way forward, a chance to reach Ruth and confront whatever this was. "Together," I whispered. As Rookwood took a step toward the path, the darkness shrieked, shaking the ground beneath me. The void around us clamored, swirling, as if it couldn't bear to let us go. "Dare you defy your fate?" It roared, but I felt the resolve firm within me. I wasn't alone. And just as we turned toward the light, I realized we had to face whatever lay ahead, or risk being consumed by the shadows forever. As we stepped onto the path, the swirling shadows recoiled, hissing like trapped animals. Rookwood moved with an urgency I hadn't felt before. I could almost sense its heartbeat synchronizing with mine, propelling us forward. With each step, the light radiated further, cutting through the oppressive darkness. I could see what lay at the end of the path, a door outlined in shimmering brightness. Relief flooded my senses, but it quickly turned to worry. Would this lead me to Ruth? Or was it another trick, designed to lure me further into the dark figure's grasp? The ground shook again, a violent tremor that made it hard to keep my footing. "Hurry," I urged Rookwood, pushing past the uncertainty. I needed to reach that door. It felt like salvation. Before long, we were at the entrance. The door was ancient, carved with intricate symbols that seemed to shift and shimmer as I focused on them. I reached out to grasp the handle, but the dark figure's voice slithered past me again, cold and taunting. "Do you really think you can save her?" it sneered. "What lies beyond is not what you expect. No amount of light can protect you now." I hesitated, my hand hovering over the door. Doubt crept in like a creeping fog, but then I remembered Ruth, her laughter, and her fierce light in moments of darkness. "I have to try," I whispered, more to myself than to the creature lurking behind us. With a deep breath, I pulled the door open. It creaked loudly, echoing into the void. Beyond it, I could see a vast landscape, vibrant and filled with colors I had never seen before. A place that felt alive. "Ruth!" I shouted, stepping through without a second thought. My heart raced as I looked around. The air tasted fresh, and the eerie whispers from the shadows behind me faded into silence. But where was she? I called out again, my voice barely a whisper against the backdrop of bright hues. All I could hear was the soft rustle of leaves and an undercurrent of distant laughter. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A figure danced in the distance, partially hidden among the foliage. My heart leapt in hope. "Ruth!" I yelled, running toward it. I could feel Rookwood close behind me, urging me onward. As I approached, the figure turned, and my heart sank. The face was familiar, yet not. It was Ruth, but distorted somehow, her eyes reflecting something darker and deeper. "I've been waiting for you," she called, her voice echoing with a strange resonance. "Ruth, what happened to you?" I stammered, feeling something shift in the air around me. "Come closer. You must understand," she replied. Though her tone seemed to carry a warning I didn't grasp. But I didn't move. An unsettling feeling settled in my gut. I glanced back to see the dark figure emerging through the door, a thick shadow spilling over the threshold. "Don't trust her," it shouted, its voice filled with triumph. Panic surged through me. I stood between the two, a distorted Ruth and the dark figure, both demanding my attention. "Choose," it roared, the void behind it bubbling with menace. Everything froze. I could feel the weight of the moment, heavy and suffocating. I had to decide. But could I trust either one? And just like that, the air shifted once more, and I felt the ground tremble beneath my feet. The ground shook violently, and I stumbled, bracing myself against a nearby tree. The hollow voice of the dark figure thundered in the air, wrapping around me like a constrictor. I was torn. On one side, Ruth, though twisted, still bore the essence of who she was. On the other, a presence of pure darkness, promising nothing but despair. Ruth, I started, my voice trembling. Please, you have to listen to me. Her eyes sparkled with a manic intensity. You don't know everything. There's so much at stake. Enough! The dark figure's voice sliced through the tension, harsh and commanding. You'll only doom yourself if you believe her lies. I gripped Rookwood's shimmering reins, feeling the warmth radiating from it, a stark contrast to the cold, shadowy figure. What do you want? I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. It stepped closer, the darkness almost tangible. Her fate is sealed. You can't save what was never meant to be saved. But you can embrace the void and find true power. Power? I echoed, disbelief flooding my thoughts. Turning my back on Ruth? On everything we had? We could have more than we ever dreamed. It hissed, a cruel grin stretching across its shadowy features. Come to me and I can show you the way. No, I said firmly. My heart raced, but it was a different kind of racing. A flicker of hope sparked within me. I won't do it. I won't abandon her. Choose. Time is running out. The dark figure roared, and I could feel the howling wind whip around me, almost pulling me toward it. I turned back to Ruth. What do you mean? Why are you like this? My voice came out softer now, showing my vulnerability. Because I was lost, but you can help me find my way back. You just have to trust me, she cried, her voice cracking slightly as panic seeped in. Then I noticed it, a faint glimmer surrounding her, something barely visible but unmistakably alive. It danced around Ruth, giving her a fleeting softness that contradicted her eerie appearance. But just as the thoughts began to form, the ground shifted beneath my feet again, deeper this time. Roots burst from the earth, erupting around the tree, trapping us as the world spun wildly. No! I shouted, feeling the pull of the shadows again, and the real danger closing in. I had to make a decision while I still could. That's when I saw it, a small glowing emblem on the tree. It pulsed softly, resonating with a familiar energy. Without considering the consequences, I lunged for it, hoping it would be the key to breaking this nightmare. Don't! The dark figure screamed, its voice laced with panic. The moment my fingers touched the emblem, everything froze again. I felt currents of energy race through me, but just as quickly, a blinding flash enveloped the entire scene. And then, darkness. I woke up gasping, sprawled on the ground near the creek. The air felt fresh against my skin, the suffocating grip of nighttime nightmares replaced by the gentle sounds of nature. Shadows cast their elongated forms across the grass, and a cool breeze stirred the leaves overhead. For a moment I felt disoriented, unsure whether I had just come from a dream or a waking nightmare. I sat up, glancing around. Ruth was there. Pale but intact, her expression a mix of confusion and relief. She opened her mouth to speak, but I rose abruptly, scrambling to my feet. "Where is the stranger?" I asked, my heart racing at the thought of what I had faced. "Who are you talking about?" Ruth replied, her brows furrowing. "The man by the creek. He was with us." Panic bubbled in my chest. It didn't make sense. The warmth of daylight filtered through the trees, making the shadows retreat. But I felt a chill run down my spine. "I don't know what you mean," she said, glancing at the creek. I turned toward the water. A swirling, murky reflection spoke nothing of the horrors I had just experienced. "He found a piece of the horse's halter. We were looking for answers." Ruth's expression shifted, concern replacing confusion. "I think we've been here before. We need to get out." But the demarcation of the property felt more like a prison than an escape route. The farm, the land, even the very air I breathed vibrated with expectations left unfulfilled. I couldn't shake the sense that the darkness lingered, hovering like an unseen fog. "Before we go," I said, my voice shaky, "I need to know what happened back there. The dark figure, Rookwood. It was all real, right?" Ruth took a step closer. "It seemed real. But I'm not sure I understand everything, and we may not have time to figure it out. She scanned the surroundings, as if half expecting the shadows to reclaim us. "Do you think the stranger made it out?" I asked, my heart heavy with uncertainty. "What if he did?" she countered, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if everything was connected and we're just part of it?" The thought struck me like ice. What if we weren't alone? An unsettling certainty settled in my gut that whatever we had faced had left an echo lingering in my heart, in the fields, and even in the sky above us. With trepidation I took one last glance at the creek, willing myself to discard the doubts, but the vision of the glowing halter flitted through my mind. What of the unresolved? The idea that more than just mystery surrounded Rookwood and its purpose. As we stepped away from the creek, I stole a glance back. The current had stilled, but the water still felt alive, teasing my memories like a distant song. I could feel it urging me to remember, to confront whatever shadows remained. "We'll return," I murmured under my breath, though I didn't know what that meant. As we reached the edge of my property, the sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that felt alive. The world felt hopeful yet twisted, and I sensed something behind us. A presence that defied time and logic, a lingering pull I couldn't shake. Once we reached the gravel road, an unusual stillness enveloped us, and though the shadows faded into the distance, I couldn't ignore the feeling that something had changed. We had escaped, yes, but the mask of normalcy felt thin, like a brittle layer waiting to crack. "I think we're free now," Ruth said, looking sideways at me, but her voice suffused with uncertainty. "Are we?" I replied, glancing back at the land. The horizon stretched far into an unfathomable distance, yet I felt the shadows whispering behind me. And as I turned back toward the road, a thought flickered through my mind. Maybe Rookwood was a warning, a reminder that some stories were never truly over, merely waiting to be told in another chapter. I moved forward, but the unease gripped me. I still think about it sometimes, the choice left behind, the voices that linger. Things were different now, but whether it was for better or worse, I couldn't quite see. Sometimes I wonder about that stranger. Did he make it out? Was he just a figment woven from the threads of a tale waiting to be spun? Maybe one day we'll return, face what remains, and dare to find out the truth. But for now, I keep those questions close, wrapped neatly in the shadows that dance just beyond the light.